QUINCUNX.
Welcome, I'm Elizabeth Coco Ann, and this is Fern, and we are here to, Fern's my astrology teacher, and she's here to guide me and you through what's happening with this new moon coming up on the 18th, and then we'll go from there. We'll converse, and I'll bring in my input from my lens and back and forth, and I hope it's exactly what you need today. Give it to Fern.
Thank you, Coco. And hello, everybody. And so I'm going to talk about the new moon in Leo, which is coming up. It's coming Tuesday, and that is August 18th, 7:41 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. So different time zones will be slightly different time. But the new moon in Leo, new moons, as we've talked about before in these videos, are always a time of opportunity and fresh starts, hitting the restart button. But the new moon is also, while it can be a fertile time and a time of kind of beginning again, it's also in some ways an unscripted time. It's not like there's, a lot of action happening necessarily, or big revelations. It's more that kind of quiet, new energy. And this particular new moon is really interesting because it's shifting away from that Cancer Capricorn sign polarity that we've been in for so many months, and it activated all of those big, planetary kind of grouping in Capricorn, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. So we get a sense of some kind of shift in energy. And in this case, it's fire, it's Leo, it's self-expression, it's creativity, it's passion, it's Leo. I was describing Leo to my astrology class this week, and I said, Leo, if I had to pick an ethnicity for Leo, I would think of Italian. It's very love of life and celebratory, and just expressing your essence. So in that way, this new moon in Leo is really lovely. It also, the sun, the moon in Leo, and also Mercury, the planet of communication. So it's kind of a triple grouping in Leo, really highlighting communicating in creative, fun, connected, warm-hearted, generous, types of ways. But there's some other stuff happening around this new moon as well that I want to get into, but I want to check in with you, Coco, and just see if you have any thoughts or anything you want to throw in there.
I'm excited to hear what's next, the layers of it, because I'm so no.
Okay. And then I'll check in with you. So we got all this Leo happening, but we still have our grouping in Capricorn over here, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto, which is going to be ongoing for the end of the year. Pluto is going to stay a little bit longer, but Leo and Capricorn form a relationship, also called an aspect in astrology language, and excuse me, that aspect is called a QUINCUNX. And a QUINCUNX, it sounds to me a lot like what it is. It's kind of quirky. It's not. It's kind of paradoxical. The QUINCUNX, the way my teacher described it to me, it's like you have one planet in one room over here, and then you kind of turn down a long hallway, and then the other planet is down here. The planets involved don't make a natural immediate connection. There's a stretching that needs to happen in kind of a weird way. It's not an opposition. You've got one planet here, one planet here. The stretch is straightforward. The QUINCUNX is kind of like this. And so the energies involved, in this case, Leo and Capricorn, fire and earth, creativity, fun, romance, celebration and practicality, patience, persistence, commitment. There's a little bit of a disconnect. And so this new moon calls us to stretch in interesting, different ways. That's one thing. Mm-hmm. Other thing we have happening is that Mars in Aries right now in its shadow phase approaching Mars retrograde, which happens September 9th. So in this new moon cycle, the Mars is going to go retrograde. So it's significant. And on this new moon, actually starting the day before Monday, which is, we're doing this Sunday, so that's tomorrow. We're feeling it now. We're going to be feeling it on the new moon, is Mars in Aries squaring Saturn. So there is also in that a friction, can be on the positive side, really hard work, patient and commitment, but also passion with Mars and Aries, Saturn and Capricorn. But there can also be frustration and feelings of some limits and, pushing hard. One thing that's been coming to me about this particular lunation is Leo as the sign of the artist. And as any artist knows, anybody who's done any kind of creative project, whether it be painting, drawing, writing, or just living a creative life, the more hard work you put into it, the more concentration and focus, all those Capricorn themes, for the most part, the better artist you become. So this lunation has that artistic piece of expression with Leo, but it's also got, it's like, what's the hard work that we need to do? What's the kind of going back to the drawing board and reconsidering with Mars about to go retrograde, what actions we are engaging in that are going to bring us closer to really expressing and knowing and sharing our true essence, our true fire with Leo. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What's coming through for me right now are some examples from my own life, and I'll be curious to share them just as an insight, to not insight, but curiosity on how it relates. In studying astrology and also just knowing COVID's happening and we're not really going any place anytime soon, and my life's been one of bebopping around the planet for years. In staying put, I'm dreaming through my writing and dreaming these. I'm feeling a need to dream in really big, boisterous, like, what if, and then I'll think of my wildest dreams, that, and the themes have been, I'm expressing, and in my art, in this potentiality. And then I'll do at the end, I'll poof it entirely, and I'll say, hey, I need help letting go of that dream, because I'm obviously staying put in quarantine right now still. And it's a different thing, but I'd like to weave these dreams up, and I'll keep coming back to that, keep coming back. Or in designing my kitchen, I'll keep coming back to, I'm remodeling right now, and I'll keep coming back to the color palettes and have a blast with them. I mean, it's a whole other story, but it's a very creative process for me. And so there's a festidiness. How do you say that word?
Yeah.
I'll just abandon that word. But I'm being like, I'll revisit the dream and revisit the color schemes and revisit the ideas again and again, and then let them go entirely and try to detach from, even if the remodel happens, or even if the whatever I'm imagining happens, and then come back into the moment. And that, to me, I think what I'm wondering is, it sounds like an embodiment of big creative self with a real non-attachment to something landing now, because so much is still reworking at a very fundamental level.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I like what you just said there about that so much is kind of reworking, and that is the backdrop of all this, that this is not a time from an astrological perspective, but also I think just from a, looking at reality perspective, it's not really a time for moving forward, green light, all systems go. It is a time for reworking, and in particular, like what you're talking about, reworking around themes of creativity. So, you know, going back to the drawing board, and maybe that color is not just quite right. So let me hone in on the color that really kind of sparks me inside. And, you know, I keep thinking of like a sculptor, and it's like, you know, sometimes if you're trying to, you know, work at a particular angle or shape, it's like you just have to keep working it. And I think part of why I think of the sculpting is because of that Mars Capricorn. There's Mars Saturn. The Saturn needs the patience, it needs the persistent, the continuation, and it's very physical, it's earthy. And then Mars, though, wants to just move, it wants to express, it wants to do. So there's a tension between those, but if that's channeled in the right direction, it can really transform, you know, reality. So we're moving towards that, but this is kind of a slow down, patience, tap into your inner creative fire and see what you can bring out around that. You also mentioned something about writing. And because Mercury in Leo is so much part of this lunation, I think all things Mercury, writing, speaking, you know, to people, listening to people, sharing your thoughts and ideas, and having fun with it with Leo. How can you add some playfulness in your communication and creativity and heart?
And I'm wondering, the other word that's hard for me is quin what? What are they doing? All the Leo pieces, so the sun and the moon, is the sun, or are the sun and the moon conjunct Mercury?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Or the new moon, and they are in a quintented.
Yeah, got it. Yeah, is that there actually is an aspect called quintile.
Yeah,
That's not what we're talking about today. We're talking about a quincunx. So QUINCUNX, quincunx.
and it's a strong, like if you go down the hallway, down another hallway, and turn around, it's strong aspect.
Well, I don't know if I call it a star. It's actually 150 degrees. That's the angle it makes. So 180 degrees is an opposition. 360 degrees is a circle. That's a circle, right? Half of that is 180 degrees. So the quincunx is almost an opposition, but not quite. It's in between a trine at 120 degrees and an opposition. So there's possibility there, but it's a little bit clunky. You know, you gotta go through those weird places.
But it's a strong aspect.
Oh, sorry, I thought you said star.
Yeah, that's okay.
Is it a strong aspect? I would say not always. In this particular case, yes, because of the power of those Capricorn, the Capricorn stellium, you know, Jupiter, Saturn, and Pluto. And then we have the Leo stellium, Sun, Moon, and Mercury. So because of that's it's not just one planet on each end, it's 3 and 3.
Yeah.
And that Capricorn stellium has been so impactful to us collectively in 2020. So here we have Leo coming along, and in what is usually a very kind of straightforward, fun new moon. And this adds a little, a slightly different slant to it.
Yeah. And so we've got the quincunx.
Quincunx, yeah. You got it.
And then, so we've got that between Leo, and it's the sun, the moon, Mercury, and then retrograde planets in Capricorn that are causing some ruckus in their deep excavation of karmic. So we've got Saturn, Pluto, and Jupiter all moving retrograde in Capricorn, which is the heavy hitters. Big Jupiter, structure, which is Saturn, and deep karmic subconscious rewiring with Pluto. And that's been happening all year, and it will keep happening while Mars starts to square them all a bunch of times too. It's not like it's gonna just go once, because it's already squared Jupiter, it's squaring Saturn, and then it's going to move backwards, right? And so it will kind of move back and forth, creating this dynamic tension between the planet of war, really, but action in the sign of action and war. But Aries has that, it's the straightforward, fast go-getter, and it's just awkward, really. I mean, if we have awkward and deep stuff at a collective level and a personal level that's coming up, what's super fun is that at the end of the story, meaning like kind of in the new year, right? When this stops, it stops around at the end, I think around solstice, in December.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, we all will come, I mean, unless we don't come through and we transition out of our body, we will come through the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And so the more we can work it, the more transformation, the more when we emerge, that we'll be entirely different beings, entirely different cultures with that much more inner work done, right? Is that?
Yeah, very true. Very well said. I think the Mars retrograde is giving us an opportunity to do all the rework in relationship to Mars. So reworking our anger, reworking our patterns around anger, aggression, assertion. Mars.
Desire, right? Mars, does that sound weird now? No, we're good. Mars is about our impetus and our desire too.
Yeah.
So it's not to interrupt, but to back up on what we're wanting and allow that to reconsider.
Yes, yes. But it also gives us an opportunity. Like, I was working with a client this week and she was describing some Mars-like situation in her life. And we were talking about a plan of action in terms of going backward and kind of cleaning up some of the old patterns that were contributing to the current situation rather than trying to move that situation forward.
Yeah.
So this is a good time to kind of reel it back in and go backwards and do some cleanup work around Mars theme. And because of the relationship between Mars and Saturn and Pluto and Jupiter, there's an opportunity for really profound change to happen, particularly if we're patient, persistent, profound, and really wanting to go deep.
Mm-hmm. I like adding the Leo aspect to it, because it does, if we keep the Leo, if there's not the expectation that I will be shining bright and acting in the world and it all is like a go, but if I drop that expectation but live creatively, it's like the full moon, really, when we were talking last time. It's, can I express love to me and to you, and creativity and brightness in the sphere that I'm in when it's available to me. So that's another piece. I just did a blog on the power of loss, and then I'm about to start creating one on sovereignty within chaos. And those themes are thick. And I wouldn't say that that's like the easiest place to shine through. So it's whenever there's availability for creative, bright flow, it's nice, because I know, in knowing the aspects, that actually feeds the deep reworking that we all are needing to do anyways. So it's not that fun. So it adds a little bit of the of flair to what's a pretty heavy process.
Yeah. And that's actually, you're making me think of one final piece of this that I want to mention for this lunation, is that the Sun, Moon, Mercury in Leo form a trine to Mars and Aries. So there's this supportive fire piece here. And in addition, this new moon forms both a trine and a sextile to the transiting north and south node. So that's the place of our collective evolution and growth, and where we're moving forward toward. And so this lunation, along with Mars, are providing some kind of juicy, fiery, just movement. So it's forward moving, but it's just a little slow, and it's go backwards at the same time you're moving forward.
Yeah. I'd almost take the word little out of there and just say it's moving slowly, not even just a little slowly.
Okay.
I have my Mars, Mercury, and Venus in Aries, and so it's very, this whole year it's like it's just a lot of coming back, but how cool that we're all doing it together.
Yeah,
really, that it's a collective piece. I'm curious, Fern, about two other aspects. I think we're fine on time too. We're trying to be about a half hour for these. And so we can add two dynamics that I'm curious about, because we've got Uranus that just turned retrograde in Taurus. And Uranus in Taurus is a pretty big deal at a collective level. And then we have Venus in Cancer squaring Chiron in Chiron and Aries.
Yeah.
And that's happening, like we have Venus that just moved backwards, and the square, is it happening in the new moon, or is it?
Well, it actually, the Venus square Chiron just is basically exact today. So when a transit becomes exact, it starts to kind of release from that engagement and that feeling of that. So although the new moon will have a flavor of it, the energy, because the transit was already exact, it's kind of more of a releasing feeling. So
yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Right? And because Venus squaring Chiron's a little bit hard in hearts. Yeah. And especially with Venus in Cancer, it's extra cozy and loves to feel safe, squaring Chiron in Aries, that's a little harsh, and it can be.
I think it's, a Chiron in Aries, it's been in Aries for a while, it's going to be in Aries for a while longer, and it's bringing up wounds around, how we sit with ourselves, how we are in ourselves, how we claim space for ourselves, how we, be and do ourselves. But it's also wounding around risk taking. How do we embrace challenges and try something new and just leap into things? Or you can bang your head when you leap head first into something and it hurts, and you learn from that. And that's coming up against this Venus in Cancer, which is Venus is always where our love is, where our appreciation is. And so right now there's a lot of appreciation for kind of the nesting and being at home and feeling safe and cozy and connected. And so these two in a square, there's some tension between those different parts.
Mm-hmm. But releasing, which is nice. There's, and let me clarify this with Uranus, Jupiter, Pluto, and Saturn. Those are the only ones moving retrograde, right?
I believe Neptune's retrograde also.
Neptune, gosh. If we could all be very unattached to outcome, but try new things, try new ways of one perceiving and acting and imagining, but being not attached to outcome, which again is hard. We could really, it feels like there's a lot of opportunity, especially when we add the Leo piece, to try you follow what it's if we're trying but we're not attached, then it's something that can be really good for later, but we don't know how.
Yeah, I think it makes me, what you're saying makes me think of, there's a I don't know if I've talked about this before in our videos, the mistake game. Does that ring any bells?
I think I've heard you talk about this, the mistake game. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's on one of the videos. Yeah.
Okay. So it makes me think about that. And I think that Chiron in Aries brings that up a lot. It's just that whole piece about that allowing yourself to make mistakes, having fun with making mistakes, practicing making mistakes, you know, because Aries is a sign that will go out and do and try, and a lot of times fail, you know, because that's part of getting up and trying things. And so not trying to take that in a way that it's when you try things and they don't work out exactly the way you imagine them to, kind of shifting that it not, you're not a failure, you know, your your life is not doomed, but it's process of getting closer to discovering who you really are and what you want out of life.
That's a pretty way. I was working with a client that I suggested she and her daughter chart, like have little check marks for each mistake they make in a day,
Love it.
to celebrate how many at the end of the day they've made. And it's that sort of thing, but also then allowing for you as other to make it too. So if I'm engaging with you, say Fern, to expect the same from you, and to have to shift our status quo a bit. And so we can say, oops, a lot, and I'm sorry, and vice versa. Like, it's okay, sweetie, we make mistakes. Let's put one on the board.
Yeah.
That's sort of a lightening around it, because it's also heavy.
Yeah. And I mean, I think just when you do a practice like that, it makes you also aware of what you judge for yourself as being a mistake, you know? So everybody, what is a mistake? You know, what was once a mistake can sometimes be something that turns out really great. You know, a lot of the greatest scientific discoveries in history have been because of a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it helps us reframe this language and this idea about what a mistake is.
Mm-hmm. Also, when we add Uranus to the mix of the mistake might end up really being what allows your brilliance to come through in a way that you never imagined, that actually affects your resources, that affects how you're making money in the world and how you're sustained. And right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
Oh, Uranus and Taurus retrograde. Yeah.
yeah, it might that there might be like a great awakening through a mistake that ends up bringing you cash in the future.
Yes, absolutely. I like that. Yeah. So, and Uranus, like, kind of going backwards, we're retraveling the same steps that we've been, because Uranus was direct in January, and it's been direct from January of 2020 until yesterday, which is when it went retrograde. So about 6 months, no, 8 months, sorry. And it's going to go direct again this coming January. So it'll be retrograde for 4 months. So in this sense, and the themes around Uranus, which are authenticity, shaking up patterns, surprises, disruption, and but also opportunities for genius and discovery and, you know, new inventions, all those Uranian themes. So we're retraveling those steps a little bit backwards that we have already covered, and looking to see if some of the mistakes we might have made might have some value with Taurus involved. You know, might have some resources available, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, and the bottom line, and this is just slightly different, but with all the reconfiguration in Capricorn going on, confidence can be shaken. And there's an element where I like to remember a belief I have that every single being that's here on the planet is a necessary piece in our evolution and our evolutionary revolution. And that I am, so a phrase is, I am open to receive my brilliance. And vice, you know, for you too, that we are open to receive our brilliance, an awakening of a brilliance that exists already within us. And that open reception in the midst of everything kind of crumbling is sometimes all we need for it to happen.
Yeah, and that's actually with Uranus and Taurus, because Taurus rules values and both like what we value in the world, love, generosity, appreciation, whatever you value, but also how you value yourself. So, and Uranus is that quality of freedom and authenticity, and taking down. In the tarot, it has to do with the Tower card, and lightning strikes the tower and the tower crumbles, and that symbolizes old structures, old ways of being crumbling in order to free up for something new. So as it goes retrograde, we're having a chance to reflect on our shifting value system, on our changing relationship to how we value ourselves and our skills, and all of those kind of themes.
It's really beautiful. The more we talk, the more I get jazzed about how pretty of a lunation it is, if we know that we're in the long haul. Also, one last piece through me, and I think then I might be finishing up, but it's that in looking at, well, one of the aspects I'm bringing up in the next blog is to create sovereignty and chaos, I invite a daily collapse. And so because of the bigness of what's going on that's really hard, personally and collectively, to allow this real deep collapse. And it might just be going into bed for 10 minutes and really letting yourself feel and identify what you're feeling about. But that daily collapse, at the end, you can emerge a little bit brighter and shine more creatively. And doing that on purpose, I think, might really work the process, where you let everything reconfigure by taking a lot of time, or maybe just a little extra time, but to really go in and then to see what authentically comes out in the next moment for fun, and knowing that it's like feeding the evolutionary process right now.
Yeah, that sounds like a great practice.
Yeah. Sweet.
All right.
Anything else, Fern?
Okay. Well, thank you everybody for listening, and thank you, Coco. It's always good to talk with you about the planets and the stars and the energy moving.
Thanks, everybody. Happy new moon. Thanks, Fern.